Welcome to part 2 of electronic cutting with icing images. Today we will prepare our fondant or gum paste for electronic cutting. Here's a list of the things that we will be using today. The first and most important thing that we will need is our Icing Images Food Safe mat. This mat is made for wafer paper, flex frost, icing sheets, gum paste, and fondant. We will also need 2 brushes, one to spread a light coat of shortening onto our mat, and one to dust off cornstarch from our fondant. I am using a rolling pin to roll out my fondant, but you can also use a pasta machine. We also need cornstarch to dust on the surface of our rolled fondant. We also need fondant, and in this case we are using Satin Eyes fondant. And finally, vegetable shortening so we can spread onto our mat. Begin preparing your mat by spreading a thin layer of shortening. This helps your fondant stay in place. A bit later, we will discuss why you should avoid the gray blocks on your mat. For now, it's okay if your shortening touches this gray area. A few things to remember regarding our fondant are to roll out our fondant approximately to 1/8 of an inch thick. Anything thicker has a possibility of catching on our blade carriage. And you can also use all the white block area to roll out your fondant. To ensure the best results, make sure to knead your fondant until it's stretchy and soft. Now, let's talk about the gray blocks. Make sure not to roll your fondant or gum paste this far out. Your Cricut has small white wheels that will sit on these edges, and if your fondant or gum paste are in the way, the wheels will run over your fondant or gum paste. Now let's go ahead and clean up the edges of our fondant to make sure that we are able to see the grid lines on our mat. This step is very important. Dusting the surface of your fondant will help to dry it out a bit, and this will result in less pulling from the blade. Here is how your fondant should look. If you haven't prepared your project on Cricut Design Space, cover your fondant to make sure it doesn't dry out.